I am here with a local resident,
Nandor the Relentless.
Nandor De Laurentiis.
We've been found out.
All of the humans are going to drive us out like their own country!
Time we fight! This is our last stand!
Tonight.
Help me, Ruby, trap the staircase.
Now is not the time for decorating. Get your go bag!
I have a plan.
Crying out loud.
FX is what we do in the shadows. All new tonight at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
Don't sing if you want to live long. They have no use for your song. You're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead and out of this world.
You're listening to League Podcast, the Vampire Council, Season 5, Episode 5 of What We Do in the Shadows. Local News is the name of this episode. I'm Matt Dursin.
Clay Inferno here.
Welcome back, everybody. And let's
to our last stand.
Our
final stand.
This episode, though, it reminded me of the one last season with the home you know what I mean? Like they reconstruct your home.
With the Sklar brothers. I think they even actually when Guillermo sits down at his mom's house and changes the channel, I think it's like switching from that show to the news.
I thought it was. I was interested. I was like, wait, what's that? But I mean, like the way it starts off with just the news, you know what I mean? Like that sort of red, white, and blue thing that every newscast does, where it's like, and like the graphics and everything. But like, and I love it. They go right to, was it Jessica Roscoe, or is that her name? The woman,
Joanna Roscoe.
Joanna Roscoe. I'm so sorry. Yeah. There's been a water main break right outside the Staten Island home of our vampire hosts here. And the best thing is, like, they're
which is in West Brighton, Staten Island, and I live in West Brighton, North Dakota.
Yeah, I noticed that. West Brighton. I was like, oh, there's a Brighton here too, in North Dakota, of course. But yeah, I mean, like, it's so funny. Like, and I know if you've ever watched a news broadcast, then you've seen you know what they're like. They're all the same. They're all like this.
Yeah, people go to school just to learn how to exactly do it right.
Right, it's true. They're literally the same.
I feel like the actors, the news actors, especially Joanna, were really good at really just, they did their job really well. It was very convincing.
And I love it's Ted Spinelli and Lisa Lipton are the two desk people, and I just love those names. Lisa Lipton just sounds like such a funny, I don't know, because I think of the tea, you know what I mean? I don't know, it's just so weird. And yeah, Joanna Roscoe is the on the scenes news reporter. And yes, they have the cadence down and everything.
You're Dead song. Like, this is just just local news bringing it in.
Yeah, right. This is the opening, whatever teaser or whatever they call them.
And they have real stock footage of New York, city workers dealing with the water main break and the streets are flooded from a helicopter, real footage.
Yeah. Yeah, but she's interviewing Nandor. And she says, Nandor, what? And he says, Nandor the Relentless. And she says, Nandor De Laurentiis.
Put it on the camera. That was so good.
And I always think of Dino De Laurentiis, who's a famous movie producer.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Back,
all the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies.
Yeah, and I think he did the Evil Dead, not the later Evil Deads and stuff, or like Army of Darkness, I guess. But it's Nandor De Laurentiis is so perfect. But it just shows you they don't care. They're not really paying attention to what you're saying or whatever, or they don't care what you're saying.
Whether or not there's any hypnotism going on, they're just oh, okay. Because they meet all these crazy people and have to do on the street interviews like that.
Yeah, they just anybody they can get, really, and you always watch them and you see where do they get these guys that can barely, or these people can barely talk and stuff. So Yeah,
Nandor
so
really
he's
plays it up too, because
I
he's
know, I
like,
love it.
and then there was a big kaboom.
Yeah, and then crash and whatever. Like the last water main break, which he says was in 1892, or in the like, oh yeah, He's like, oh, I am sorry, 1992, because that took place in my lifetime as a human or whatever. Like he
Yeah.
so awkwardly
And she's like,
tries to cover
I was
it.
gonna say, I need your skincare routine.
Yeah, she's so like nice also in a way too, but also just sort of dismissive, and like they're always trying to get rid of like the people. But like, and then he's like, yes, and I lived in Staten Island then. I've lived in Staten Island for centuries. And she's like, okay, well, and then he just kind of starts to back away.
Yeah, and then he
goes
runs
like,
away. He's like,
"Ooh,"
I
and he
fucked
makes
it.
this-
I fucked
Yeah, he's
it.
like, I know. He's like, shitty shit.
Shitty shit. I
it.
fucked it.
I love that. Like, I fucked it. And then they go into the you're dead. But yeah, that whole bit was just so funny because they have the news thing down pat. Nandor is great, of course. And yeah, what a great opening. And it tells you everything that it really sets up the whole show, basically. So great work there. But yeah, so he goes back to the house and I love this. He tells Colin Robinson to turn on Channel 8. And Colin Robinson says, what, your arm's broken?
Classic. A New England dad would say that to a
Yeah,
young man.
right. Exactly. But they turn it on and they see him. And then they all freak out because they think they have been discovered. Vampires, have been, found out.
Yeah, Nadia says she's like used to being kicked out, driven out of town. She's done it 4 or 5 times.
Five villages or whatever. She's
Sucking on the necks of the goats you used to call your brothers.
That's so yeah. This is hilarious to me because like each one of them now has kind of a plan. I love like
they
Colin
each have
Robinson
like
is obviously the
big
best.
Personality explosion of how they're going to deal with it.
Right, and it fits with their character, But Colin Robinson becomes this sort of like flat earther, apocalypse survivor kind of guy, like he starts he's like, we gotta make a last stand.
I said he was a prepper.
Yeah, I couldn't think of that. I was like, what do they call those guys? Like,
I knew exactly
doomsday prepper. Yeah. And I love it. He's like, we gotta make a stand. He just shoves over like a bureau or something. He just
yeah, he's super strength.
Yeah, that's right. But he starts booby trapping the house and everything.
He's doing all these ridiculous stuff, like putting nails and like stuff that's gonna explode, like making like shrapnel mines.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Shrapnel in the
watch
original
out.
German.
Yeah, the original German. Like it's a Bouncing Betty. Yeah. So meanwhile, Nadia she apparently, because she's been run out of so many villages, she has a go bag for everyone, which is like, she says you don't want to be run out of your village with just the clothes on your back. So she's got like she's ready.
Yeah,
and then she's
go bag and she's yelling Laszlo to get his.
Yeah, and she's got a fake identity to assume it's Sally Rhubarb, I think.
Sally Rhubarb, and she's like,
it's like
the best
pop
at the county fair.
Yeah. And
the guide is kind of like trying to get in on Nadia's escape plan, and Nadia's still. They treat the guide like such shit. Like they're just like, yeah, oh cool, yeah, I guess you're coming with us.
Well, that was the best part, right? Because like she says, like none of them are coming. I guess it's just you and me. And she's like, oh, really?
Cool,
like,
cool.
She's not excited about that at all.
Yeah.
Poor guy. I know the poor guy just wants to be friends.
Poor guy just wants to, go to events and stalk their friends at their events and never leave at the end.
Exactly. That's the guide. And Laszlo's thing is sort of, he's got a plan, and his plan involves first killing Joanna Roscoe, and then it's kidnapping Joanna Roscoe, which is step 1. And then, well, how does that help? It's like, well, it leads to step 2. And I don't think we ever found out what step 2 was.
No, he's just like he's like, I have a plan, and he keeps like redrawing the plan and writing it out, and then telling people, well, because everybody always that's the running gag, like, what's next? Step 2.
Step 2. But I think at one point he had 9 steps, but we never knew what any of them were. We only knew the first one was kidnap Joanna Roscoe, and then he keeps yelling at Nandor to get like a bag, or he has like a potato sack. He's like, that's not big enough. You have to fit her whole body in there. So he comes back with like a plastic bag, just like a plastic like shipping bag, that you'd get something shipped to you, like it's in the box or whatever. Like, and he's like, that's translucent. But yeah, it's so great. They all have these different ways to solve this problem, and none of them
every time you see
are any good.
Colin Robinson doing something in the background, like hanging up knives from the chandelier, not
right.
just like, there's no time to fucking decorate and get your go bag.
Oh, yeah, your go bag. Right, he's like, get out of the chandelier drop zone, or whatever he says. It's classic.
Yeah, it's kind of like very much Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, no, it is. It's great. I mean, it's just perfect because I don't know. He's so like, usually he's just kind of very, and it's still kind of in the background, but they all have their thing, and it's great. Everybody's they're there. And Nandor's thing is like, oh, I'll just hypnotize all the viewers of Channel 8, but then he goes back out to talk to Joanna Roscoe, and then they cut him off with like a weather alert. So he's like, all the viewers of Channel 8, and then it's like, like breaking news. So he didn't get to give them the brain scramblies.
And let's not forget about Guillermo, because also Nandor was like, where the fuck is Guillermo?
Yeah, this was I thought this was cool. This was a great story, but also kind of sad, right? So here's Guillermo's thing. Guillermo's thing is he wants to say goodbye to his mother, because when he becomes a vampire, they are, a long line of vampire slayers, as we know from previous episodes. And so it wouldn't be good for either him nor them, I guess, to be around each other. So he wants to go and say his goodbyes, but he can't tell her that that's what he's doing, but whatever. So he shows up at the house, and it turns out he was so, I guess, wrapped up in this whole thing, he forgot it was her birthday.
Right. The whole reason they were even getting together.
Yeah. So the whole family's there. And I guess that's his brother, Miguel, whatever. But he's like, yeah, where's your gift?
I think it's his cousin, because he says, we're putting my Tia's gifts over here. That means his aunt. And then he's like, oh, you didn't bring a gift for your own mother's birthday.
Yeah. So yeah, he kind of feels bad, but he's, and he starts to be like, Mom, I got to talk to you. And then he sees the news, and he sees Nandor on the news, on the TV in his mom's house. So then he's very distracted, and obviously, and he tries calling them and whatever. And so that's like a whole thing. But when he eventually does sit her down and says, I have to leave or whatever, and like I have to say goodbye. And first of all, I forgot this gag. They think he works for the railroad or something.
Yeah, he's like, how many railroads are there?
Yeah. He's like, oh, I'm gonna go work for another railroad. How many railroads are there? So, but yeah, so she's like, oh, where's your crucifix? And she puts this crucifix on him, and I couldn't tell if it was like burning him or just really tight.
No, it was
I think it's kind of both. Okay. Because
did you notice also the gag in the mirror too?
Oh no, I didn't see. What is he?
So like, it's a little tricky. So like, you know how in the movie Viago's drinking tea, or he's probably blood, I guess. And you just see the teacup in the mirror.
Yeah,
With Guillermo, his mom is like patting him on the back after she puts the cross on him, and he's like halfway, like translucent in the mirror. Like I did not notice that, but you can see her hand like stroking his back.
Wow, that's messed up.
And it's like I don't blame you for not seeing it because it was very subtle.
Oh man, shit. I mean, that's great. I love that. Like, it's so weird. Like he's still kind of in between, because he goes.
He's literally, it's like
yeah.
was halfway translucent,
and he,
the cross did burn him, so like he definitely does have some vampire.
Yeah, but he can still eat like regular food and whatever. But so that is interesting. I did not notice that, but that's a big deal. But the best, or like the best and saddest part is like he's like, okay, I gotta go, because he has to go back to, wants to help, the vampires in this time of crisis, I guess.
Yeah, and it's like all over the phone and stuff. Trying to get in touch with him.
But as he's leaving, his mom tells his cousin, like, oh, he's been doing this. He comes by and he has to say goodbye. He'll probably be back next week. I mean, that's like, I thought that was
I didn't
sad.
see, now that I didn't notice that part, actually.
Oh, really? I thought that was like a real sad moment for him. Like, she says it in Spanish. Is it Spanish or Portuguese? Is he Spanish?
Spanish. Okay,
sorry. All right. So it's in like the closed caption, you know what I mean? Like, or it's really interesting. He's like, yeah, he's been doing this. It's kind of weird, like, or whatever she says.
And another thing too is kind of like Guillermo doesn't realize the passage of time while he's in talking with his mom and stuff, because it's he's kind of on vampire time, because he keeps like taking time off to like watch TV and then go and call the vampire's house. But also, like, all of a sudden when he finally brings his mom into the bedroom to talk to her, he's like, oh, what happened? She's like, yeah, no, the party's like been over for a while. Everybody went home.
You were on the phone.
Yeah.
So they just think he's kind of being rude. Like they accuse, you know what I mean? Like his cousin was accusing him of just looking at his phone and not being present.
And then his cousin is like, he's like, it's the screens. You got to cut that shit out cold turkey, like I did with Sierra Mist.
I knew Sierra Mist.
I don't know why, but it's so funny. He's like, I don't drink any Sierra Mist anymore. I think just the specificity of whatever it is, it could be anything.
It wasn't soda,
but that's just what makes it so funny.
Sierra Mist. I know.
That's like
I don't even think Sierra
David
Mist
Sedaris level humor.
I think Sierra Mist got replaced by that Starry. Have you seen this Starry in this one? It's weird.
I don't drink lemon lime.
Yeah.
No caffeine in a lemon lime. Why would I drink it?
No, true. It's true. There's no caffeine in it.
Bother?
You're right.
I gave up Sierra Mist a long time ago.
Well, just like Miguel.
Who's drinking
But
water.
yeah, I mean, he did get through. He called Sean, which was also a great moment. We don't want to skip over that. That's just like the Sean cameo.
And Sean is like, well, there's a water main that broke down here.
Yeah. And I love that you can hear Sean yelling in the phone and on the newscast in the background.
Like because he's like, the newscasters, they parked on my lawn and just resorted it last year.
Yeah, and you can hear him screaming on both ends. It just cracks me up. I love that Sean always just kind of makes a little appearance with that now.
And Joanna's like, there's a lot of activity out here.
Yeah, some of the locals are, So, but yeah, I don't know. That was, and so even when Guillermo after he leaves his mom's place, he gets in the elevator. And that's when his mom, as he's left, that's when his mom says like, yeah, he doesn't, he's been doing this every week. The last few weeks he comes and says he has to say goodbye and he's back. And then everybody gets in the elevator,
like vampire time. Like he can't remember that he's doing this or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Time is different, right? When you've lived all those years.
Right.
But then he just breaks the handrail in the elevator. The funny thing is too, a guy gets in the elevator with him and like kind of looks at the camera like, what is going on here? It's like, why is there a documentary crew in this elevator?
Yeah, and he's like, it was like this when I came in here.
Yeah, because he broke the handrail right off. So he does have vampire strength, I guess, on some level.
He's got lots of vampire powers.
Yeah, but then he goes back to the house. So this is kind of the other weird part. So like, we're still kind of exploring the Nandor Guillermo, dynamic here, because he's like,
And Nandor
Where
is
were
basically
you?
like, well, we didn't even need you, so whatever. You have your life, I
Right.
have mine.
Yeah, but
We
like,
get it.
so yeah, Guillermo's kind of like, okay, like he's kind of sad that they didn't need him, but Nandor is also sad because he's like, fine, I'll just, like he wanted to, almost like he wanted to fight with him about it or something, like it was very interesting. I thought that's what I got out of it. I don't know.
Well, it's a relationship between those two, the whole story, the whole show.
Exactly. And this season is a little different because if Nandor found out, then he would, he would have to kill him or whatever. The embarrassment, the shame, I guess. But yeah, I mean, like it is. That was a funny little moment. Yeah, you're fucked. That's what happened. That was just a funny moment where neither one of them would admit that, anything. They just played it cool, I guess. But yeah, then Guillermo goes down into his room and turns on the TV and starts eating like real food. So I guess he's not all the way yet.
He has like his mom gave him, because they had already packed up the party was over.
Yeah,
it's a go thing for Guillermo because he missed.
And he kind of even says like, well, I guess they didn't need me because they. So here's the best part though, like the clincher, I don't know, clincher.
The clinger.
So Joanna Roscoe and her camera crew. First of all, Colin Robinson blows up the news van that's broadcasting live, but they meanwhile pulled. I guess it was Sean's car, right, out of this hole in the ground where the water main.
The Monster Mobile. That's their.
Oh, you're
car.
right.
Because she's like an antique car is just driven into the sinkhole.
I didn't even notice, but they're seen flying and pulling it out, and she's like, "Oh my god, what is that? Like, are they flying?"
She's like, "You better get this on the memory card."
Yeah. And so now they have to drive back to the studio because Colin Robinson blew up their news van.
The satellite thing. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So they can't go live. It's like, we got to get this back. So you don't really know what happens, but they cut back to the newsroom, then you hear all this rustling in the back, or this disturbance in the background, and then like they cut and they go back, and Nandor and Nadia are at the desk.
And I think that the guide is eating at least the weather person or one of the anchors.
Yeah. I think the anchors, they just kind of gave them the brain scramblies and said, "You will go to sleep," or whatever. I also, I kind of think we should mention this. So Nadia in her disguise she also went blonde. And then for some reason, the guide dyed her hair brown. So she's like, great, they're going to be looking for a blonde and a brunette. The guy's like, I didn't think ahead or something.
But also, did you notice that Nadia Doll was also blonde?
So good. So funny.
All the little details.
I know. Like they never called attention to it. It's just one of those things that you have to notice. So perfect. So anyway, yeah, then like they start doing the news broadcast, and it's then so funny.
Each person has their own newscaster thing. So Nadia and Nandor are the main hosts, and Laszlo's on sports, and Colin Robinson's on weather, and they each go around like Anchorman, and each gets a little line, and it was funny.
Yeah, they were like, just read what's on the screen. So they just read the teleprompter. But I love like Colin Robinson's because he's in front of the weather thing. Like you can't. His shirt.
He's in all his camo green. So the map is like on his shirt.
Yeah, it's so funny. But yeah, like the guide is down there with like dead weather lady, and all the blood has splattered on the screen.
Yeah, so it messes
behind
up the
him.
screen.
He's like, oh, there's a little bit of schmutz there. It's like, I got a little bit of schmutz on our screen. Which I don't know. I think the word schmutz is great, but
very funny.
Yeah, and then they kind of like drag the weather lady off, and then they cut over to sports, and they're talking about it's like the football, Yeah,
Colin actually Cowboys.
Yeah, Laszlo delivers it perfectly. It's not even like it's like this is what a sportscaster would say
because he's a
dumb
genius. The guy.
I know. Yeah, I know, but it's also like Laszlo, not Matt Berry necessarily, but Laszlo, like
the whole package. My opinion.
It just shows how stupid and how literally anybody could do the sports, because they're just like, and then the guy, blah, 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 like, our boys in blue will have to do, like, it'll be
And he goes,
blood,
with
sweat,
blood,
and tears. Yeah.
sweat, and tears. He emphasizes blood, of course.
He does emphasize blood. You're right. So and then they kind of they gave everybody the brain scramblies to forget that they saw anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah, and also Guillermo's like watching it at home eating tortillas or and he's like, oh, I guess they didn't need me.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I guess it worked out because he watched the whole newscast.
Yeah. And I think he feels kind of like, they don't need him. And he used to be, like his thing was to take care of them because they were so stupid, especially during the day, but also just anytime. Like they never did they didn't know how to do anything without him. And now here they got out of this mess by themselves. I mean, not well, but so he feels kind of bad. And he
Nandor got them in the mess in the first place.
That's true. Yeah. He gets up and he's like, well, I guess, the hardest thing about becoming a vampire is, saying goodbye. And he starts walking through the house and he sets off all the traps.
Yeah.
Like
really
a flamethrower. Yeah.
There's a lot too. Like something pops out of the wall, a big pit in the pendulum fucking thing comes swinging down, fire.
Yeah, he's on fire at one point.
Everything.
It's so funny.
But the Delacruz in him, his vampire hunting instincts allowed him to kind of like, do like a parkour, daredevil thing, and just kind of he made his way through it without ever getting hit.
Well, it's just funny because he's kind of screaming and going, So yeah, that was basically the classic. I thought this one was great.
It was awesome.
I like it's different. Like it didn't advance any story or I mean, I guess a little bit with Nandor and Guillermo, but it wasn't like a big. Didn't focus on that too much. It was just a funny half-hour television or whatever it was. Maybe it's a little longer.
I think it's like a half hour.
Yeah, I think it's about half an hour. So.
I gotta say, I mean, I loved it. I didn't love this as much as I like, Sklar Brothers, but I don't know if you can really top that. But also, last episode was great. This wasn't. Yeah. I don't think this ranked higher for me than any other episode in the season, to be honest. I'm not saying I didn't like it. It's not like, last time we watched the episode, I was like, this is my favorite one so far. But I can't say that for this one, but I did really enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I don't know where I would rank it in, whatever, but I like when they play with the format a little bit. Like I said, last year's one with like when they kind of show the newscast, you know what I mean, as part of the show or
it's
stuff
great
like that. Like the show within the show kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a reverse of documentary crew thing in a way. Like they're playing with their own tropes.
Exactly. That's what I love when they do that. They play with the things a little bit. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, that's how this show can have longevity because they'll always be creative with their ideas on just the format of the show. And now that it's a little bit more broad, and it keeps getting renewed, like people love this show and the people that are writing it, they're absolute geniuses in my mind. So good.
Yeah, I absolutely. And that is true. Like if you just have like a regular 3-camera sitcom or whatever they call them, you know what I mean? Like you only have so much you can do, like I remember like Cheers, right? People would always be like, all right, enough with the bar or something. You know what I mean? Like, you can't really play with the format sometimes as much as you can with this show. Yeah.
Yeah, you have people making the show that are like, what can we do format wise? Like when they get like to direct their episode or write their episode, like, okay, like this is a show we can really mess around. So let's flip something else on its side,
Right. And
like let's
creative.
spend FX's money. Like when they did the remodeling thing, like they had to shoot a bunch of extra stuff and pay for guest stars and everything like that. It's
Yeah.
like, let's spend this money smartly and do
Why
something
not?
cool with it. Like, let's pay for the graphics department to do news stuff. Let's see how accurate we can get the newscasters to be.
Exactly. They got it. They got it perfect in my mind. So, very well. Hey, we should have probably mentioned this at the beginning. The sad news of Paul Rubens he passed away this week. Yeah. And I had kind of forgotten that he was on season 1, episode 7 of What We Do in the Shadows. We weren't doing
It was a Vampire Council episode, wasn't it?
Did we do that? I don't remember.
No, but was it Vampire Council? That's why he was there.
It was when they were on trial, and all the other vampires were in it, and that, yeah. And so apparently, I never watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I think the movie, right? Not the show. But that he played a vampire, and so he was reprising his role.
Yeah, he was much like Blade or whatever. Like he was the vampire from that show.
Right. The same thing with all of them. Like all the vampires in that episode who were. So Paul Rubens did appear. So there is a connection there, but from what I understand, just the nicest guy, and it's very sad. And I remember Pee-wee fondly, as we all do.
Oh, yeah. Appointment viewing. Needed to watch that when it was on.
Well, yeah, that's what it was back then. If you missed it, that was it. You missed it. You had to wait for a rerun.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, I couldn't separate when I was a kid. I thought that Pee Wee Herman was the guy, and Paul Rubens. I didn't know who Paul Rubens was.
Right.
And then I saw him.
A huge fan of Batman Returns, but he plays the Penguin's dad in that, and that was
right.
I was
exactly.
like, oh, pointing at it, that's fucking Pee Wee.
Well, that's like what weirded me out, right? Because someone had told me like, oh, that's the guy who plays Pee Wee Herman. I'm like, what do you mean the guy who plays Pee Wee Herman? That's not Pee Wee Herman. Like I couldn't separate the character from the person.
They've been posting a lot of early Paul Rubin work. Like he's a waiter in Blues Brothers. Like there was just all these news people who were like, before they were famous kind of things. I guess he was a stand-up comedian doing like his Pee Wee character and like just trying to break in and acting in a bunch of different things. And then, more recently than Batman Returns, he came back to play Robin Lord Taylor, who played the Penguin on Gotham. He played his dad also, and Carol Kane was his mom in Gotham, which was a show that I did enjoy. And to see him like play the same role again was cool. And Robin Lord Taylor is a cool Penguin, so it was all very cool.
Did you ever watch the movie Flight of the Navigator? Do you remember that movie as a kid?
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he in that?
He was the voice of the alien ship thing.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
But it's really funny because I thought it was just a guy doing Pee Wee, because he basically he's just like Pee Wee Herman. He does like the and stuff like that. But he was in the credits
really good,
as oh, thank you. In the credits, he's listed as Paul Mall, like not Paul Rubin,
like the cigarette.
I guess. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know why he wouldn't just be Paul Rubens, but maybe that was kind of around the same time as Pee Wee was hitting it big, and he just didn't want to be like, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know the story there, but I'm curious. I don't know if there may be no story, but it was interesting. I think that's why I never put two and two together. I literally thought it was just somebody doing a Pee Wee impression, but it wasn't. It really was Paul Rubens.
That's a bit like, I remember watching that movie, but that seems like almost like another, like a big touchstone movie for like a lot of people, but I've maybe only seen it once or twice when I was on TV.
Well, I probably haven't seen it in like almost 40 years, but
I'm just saying, a lot of people like are like, oh, that fucking movie is so good. I remember the one where, this is not Flight of the Navigator. Remember the one where they like built a spaceship in the backyard? That's not the same one, is it?
No.
It's like three guys
it's
and they
not.
build a spaceship, and then there's aliens that come down.
I don't know if I remember. I mean, it sounds like something that would have come out in the 80s for sure. We
It
were
definitely
really into
was.
aliens and space shit. So, but anyways, that, more than Paul, there's a lot of fond memories of Paul Rubens, but apparently he was also just the nicest guy. And I was listening to Conan O'Brien's podcast about it. Apparently if you were on his, if you were in his friend group on your birthday, he would just send you multiple texts and funny little gifs or gifs or whatever and just all day. It was celebrating.
Nice.
He would just keep sending you funny things all day on your birthday. So yeah, it seems like it's cool. Oh, look at this cool. IMDb. This is just Bob's Burgers. He did a voice. DC's Legends of Tomorrow, 5 episodes. That must have been what you were just talking about, right? Or no, he was Gotham is what you were talking about.
Gotham.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the name next to Legends of Tomorrow? Who are you playing?
Diebuck? I never watched the show. He's like 5 episodes.
That was also an alien.
Okay.
I didn't know was Paul Rubens, so you just said that.
Well, there you go. I mean, he didn't always just have to sound like Pee-wee. He could do voices. So anyways, very sad, but there is a What We Do in the Shadows connection there, so I thought we should mention it.
Definitely.
And, yeah. Well, what else? Do we know what next week? I think it's something about
You're the one that's on the internet over there.
I know. I'm on the internet. I should have done this sooner, but then it's called Urgent Care.
Urgent
The
Care.
episode is called.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what's the description?
Description is, I don't have a description. Oh, here we go. When Guillermo is injured, Nadia takes him to urgent care. Colin has trouble feeding. Oh, they did show that in the next week preview thing, that Colin has apparently become too interesting. And he said, it reminds me of when I was in Nam. And Nandor says, you were in Vietnam or whatever. So we'll have to find out what goes on there. But
Wow.
yeah, I don't know. If Guillermo is injured, so that means he's not. If he can get injured, then he's not really a vampire, and I guess he goes to urgent care. So I hope he has insurance, because man.
But that's also a place they can go to urgent care at night.
That's right. It's open all
vampires.
night. Open all night. It's like the Springsteen song. Nobody knows, but it's
Not
a
me.
song. All right.
Didn't know.
It's okay. But yeah, anyways, I think that's about all we got. You got anything else you want to mention
I would like
here,
to
Clay?
give a special shout out to our friends in the Vampire Council Facebook group.
Good
And
idea.
also make a couple of announcements related to this podcast. It still exists in all the places that you would get the podcast. If you can, listen to us on Spotify. And I've made it very easy by buying a domain name. So if you go to spotify.vampcouncil.com, that goes right to a playlist that has just this podcast. So get after it. Go to vampcouncil.com/Facebook. That's our Facebook group. And welcome to all new members. And we have decided to bring back giving people ridiculous vampire names. If you have an old one you want to trade it in, I'll forget that I've given it to you already. So I'll give you a new one. But that's a fun thing. And also, yeah, you can just check us out there on Spotify or theleaguepodcast.com.
Yes, that's true. Do that. Check us out. I mean, like we said, it's great wherever you get your podcast, but Spotify's easy. You don't need to pay
Just
for
this
anything.
podcast is easy to get to. Spotify.vampcouncil.com.
That's right. If you're just listening to this one,
That's a thing you could do on Spotify, make a playlist.
hey, there you go.
And that's a way that we can have our main show and this one, but still show this one specific love.
I like it. Well, enjoy all the episodes. Enjoy this one. Enjoy everything you do in life. Thanks to you, as we like to say.
Enjoy your burrito.
Enjoy your burrito.
Well, now we got to do a countdown, and it hasn't. I don't think that's set up yet, but let's just call it that at vampcouncil.com to send in your audio or video of our famous sign off, where we say 1, 2, 3, and then we both say bat out of sync. And if you want to be involved with that, we will mix you in just like the Dark Knight Rises. Can I get an amen?
Amen. Amen, brother.
So we will do our traditional countdown to 3, 2, 1, bat, and we will do it right now.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Bat! Fix it in post. Hopefully we'll have more voices soon.
Add your voice to America's voting box.
Vampcouncil.com will be the email address. That's pretty cool.
That at vampcouncil.com. And then you can call us and tell us that this podcast is terrible and you don't listen, but you heard it and you heard the email address and were compelled to write in for some reason.
Absolutely. You should definitely do that. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Later, you fuck.
It's one of the hardest guitar pieces in the world to play.